the Sekonic L358, which is this meter here, and the 758, which is this meter here, they've always had the ability to add a Pocket Wizard module or a Sekonic module that fires Pocket Wizards. So it's this little module right here. And what that has allowed these meters to do is to work in the studio and trigger flashes, and so you don't need a sync cable. And so the traditional way these have been used is something like this, where I have a Pro Photo here, I've got a Pocket Wizard +3, in the past maybe it's a +2 or a plus or a Multimax, something like that, and you were able to, instead of having a sync cable that joined your meter to your flash, you would just use a radio, and then you could take a meter reading, and the flash would fire, and then you could adjust your flash up or down, set your camera to the meter reading and take pictures, and it all worked great. And that worked great for a long time. But recently, a couple years ago, Pocket Wizard introduced a totally new system, the Mini and Flex and some adapters. And so we have some of these back here. So we have an Alien B with a Flex and an AC9, and that allows us to trigger an Alien B. I have a Canon Speedlight right here with the Flex, and the Flexes communicate using something called a Control TL, which stands for Control the Light. And in the past, if you wanted to use your Sekonic meter to trigger something that had a flex, it wouldn't work unless you used standard triggering, so you weren't able to use all of the abilities of Control TL until now. And now you have the ability to trigger normal standard triggering as well as Control TL triggering, and because it's Control TL, you can do adjustments from your camera and use the AC3 and the Mini and all kinds of stuff. Now, I'm going to get into the differences between standard triggering and Control TL triggering in a little bit, but that is, in a nutshell, what this does. It allows you to talk to two different types of systems and use all the benefits of Control TL while still having the compatibility with the standard triggering that you've always loved. So that's what that is. Well, I guess right now is a good time to talk about the differences between Control TL and standard triggering. So let me give you a sort of a Mark's history of Pocket Wizard, and this will help out. So way back in the past, if you are using a studio strobe, what you would need to do is you would have a cable, it's called a sync cable, that you would plug into your camera, and that cable would go all the way over to your strobe, and when you took a picture on your camera, that would make your flash fire, and if you wanted to meter that flash, you'd have to unplug that cable, plug it into a port on the front of your meter, take a meter reading, adjust, and so you had this cable that was sort of a bummer. And so Pocket Wizard was invented, and what it did was, one of the things it did, was it allowed you to put a radio on your camera, and a radio on your flash, and then a radio on your meter. And so instead of having that cable that had to go everywhere, you could just do everything wirelessly, and it was brilliant. It worked great. Not only that, but you can put a Pocket Wizard on your camera, and you can remotely trigger your camera, which would then remotely trigger a flash, and that all of a sudden gave us the ability to use many flashes at different distances, and it gave us a lot of creative control. We could do multiple cameras, and it was pretty awesome, and it still is. Not only that, but it allowed us to take these flashes and put them way up in the air and not have to worry about all those cables getting in the way. And because it was radio triggers instead of these wires or line of sight, we put things behind walls or inside of things and hide things. We just got a bunch of creative control. Well, a couple of years ago, Pocket Wizard created something that was brand new, and it's called Control TL, and that stands for Control the Light. And what Control TL is, it allows us to add speed lights and some studio strobes to the mix. And so what we can do is, we've always been able to take our speed lights and put them on our camera and control that speed light from our camera and use through the lens metering. And we've been able to take those speed lights off our camera and use them as off-camera flashes, but we've had to use infrared remotes or line of sight remotes. And it wasn't so great because out in bright sunlight, or when we try to put flashes behind walls and things, it just didn't work very well, and the range wasn't very good. So Pocket Wizard created these Flexes and Minis that we see here, and allows us to take our speed lights off camera and use them just as if they were on the camera, so we can do all of our TTL metering and control and all kinds of things, but now it's radio triggers, and so it's a brand new language. So it's not the same as the original Pocket Wizards. The original Pocket Wizards worked like this. The camera or the meter would just say, flash, and the flash would flash, and that was it. But the Control TL stuff, the CTL stuff, what this does is it tells the flash to fire, the flash